TV, so hypnotic, Aphrodite. That's me. Hi. Ooh, maybe we should go on TikTok Live too. It's been a hot minute since I've done that. So, you know, why not? Scoot all this bullshit out of the way, you know. Live. Hi. How you guys doing? Oh, I've got rainbows on me. Also, we've got Asylum. Let me see his selfie. He's sleeping in the sun. He's trying to get more toasted than he already is. Hi. How you guys doing? Happy your week is over? That's valid. I'm doing pretty good. I slept on wet / damp hair, so it's kind of all over the place. But I didn't feel like trying to put it up, so yeah. Hi. Hello. Ooh, also, I did sort of make, I guess, the next version of me trying to make one of these. I don't understand how they get so many bubbles in them. Like, I did my absolute damnedest to not. There's one that's about to fucking go right now. To not have any fucking bubbles in this. And still, there is a myriad of them. And I'm just like, how? Like, there's a whole bunch stuck to the magnetic stir. And I'm like, where did you come from? What? Ooh. Honestly, this is really pretty just like this. Like, you can't. Like, some of the powders are floating and some aren't. Like, that's just cool. Here, I'll show you TikTok. Like, that's just mesmerizing on its own. Just watching the tiny, tiny little particles. I put some silicone caulk. This is the bottom, technically. I'm like, I want to flip it over, but I'm. Oh, my eye. Did my eye show up? Can you see my eye? Incredible. I'm like, I hope it doesn't, like. Whoa. 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 That's so cool. It's just all coming down like a storm. Okay, well, the bottom seems good. Should I get the, see, look, it's got a bubble on the top. Like, I tried so hard to make sure there were no fucking bubbles. And yet, there it is. Okay. Seal seems good on the bottom. Shall I get the magnetic stir and we'll we'll see how it does. Okay, so this is the other one. And the issue that I was having with it... He ran from TikTok. Hi! is that, since there's such a big gap, the, like, magnetic field wasn't hitting it right. Whereas on this one, in theory, it should be, you know, directly against, so there's less of a barrier. Hello! Haven't seen in so long. I haven't done stuff on TikTok in a while. But today we're not playing a game. We're gonna be watching I'm gonna be reading Molly Moon. So I figured that you guys on TikTok could join. Okay. Let's see where I can plug this in. Okay. Just make sure. So far, so good. No escapage. Yeah, I got my cute little earrings on, but they're kind of hidden by my hair right now. So let me show you guys this one, right? See, it's just kind of like vibrating on the side. Because it's too high up. Oh, there we go. Oh, can't go too high or else it freaks out. It's struggling to get all of the all of the powder that is settled at the bottom. Hello! I'm so pretty and stunning. Thank you. Let's see if I... Ooh. Oh, it's cool to see on the bottom. The, like, clumps of powder that are coming down from the top. I used a multi-chrome powder, so it's a little, you really can't see it on the, you can kind of see it on TikTok. I must call it Discord. Twitch isn't really showing it, but it's got a slight purple pinky shift to it in the light. Yeah, I made this one and I made this one. Because I love these fucking things. So I'm like, how do I, this one's really heavy, so I'm like, how do I show this one? Okay. Are you ready? Oh. Come on. Oh. There we go. Wow. It's so cool. It's very, very pretty. Okay, if you go too fast, it just kind of freaks out. So you have to just kind of keep it in a low. And like, compared to... It's way bigger. Gotta keep it in the middle. Oh no. Oh, I see moisture. Oh no. Why are you leaking? Stop it. It's leaking from somewhere. I don't know what more I can do to it to make it not leak. I don't know. Yeah, see, there's a little bit of water. Very shiny, reflective water, but water nonetheless. Come get. Oh. That's fine. We're good. Like, I don't know, maybe caulk wasn't a good idea, or maybe I'm being too impatient with it and it needs to... I mean, okay, so the construction of this, right? So, got this thing, which is actually for like a sconce, like for light to go over a bulb. And then I have an acrylic disc that had a hole in it, so I attached the disc to the opening with UV resin and cured it, and then I filled it through the hole, and then I covered the hole with UV resin, and then this is a little mirror. I attached the mirror with more UV resin, and I cured it. Since, you know, this is glass, and when it's all settled, it's clear. I stuck it in there for a while. And then I put clear caulking around it twice. So I'm like, I don't know why it's still having some issues. And it's annoying because it's not like I can backtrack. You know, I can't exactly take it apart because it's bonded with resin. So if too much water escapes, kind of fucked. Does the bottom piece screw on? No. It's just placed on top and bonded as well as I could with UV resin. Saying UV resin enough time causes the subject to drop. Might just need longer to dry then. Maybe. Plumber's tape, I might try just wrapping it a couple of times around. I don't know. This one's been fine because this one does screw in because it's got like a little thingy that goes here and then it screws on. So this one's pretty fine in terms of, you know, water escapage. And I mean, it is still fun. Hello. And I mean, it's not like this one doesn't work. It's just a little tricky to get it to start sometimes. But I mean, it does work. I don't know. Anyway, that's partially what I've been up to. So, I also haven't eaten today, so we should probably make some food. What should we make? Did you guess? Pasta? I haven't made pasta in a while, to be fair. Madame Leota? Who's that? Some sort of shrink wrap to the base? That's an idea. Like, I'm worried that it'll still find a way to... I don't know. Water is tricky. Trixie. What is this little fucking piece doing? And the pasta angle. Well, but that's all the way. I can't put you guys over there on the floor. Sadly. Mac and cheese. I actually don't have mac and cheese right now, so it would be pasta Alfredo, which I am totally fine with because I fucking love Alfredo. Good shit. I tried wetting my hair a little bit. It would probably benefit more from like a full re-wetting, but I don't want to do that right now. I gave you the vibe of that attractive witch who lives in the woods and hypnotizes all. Is that not? Is that not what I am? I feel like that describes me pretty well. Oh, also, with this one, a clear version of Flex Seal. Ooh. Okay. I'll have to look into that. Someone remind me to look into that later. Maybe that'll help. But with this one that I like got the needle for, I think it's gonna need more than just filling it with water. I might try applying like a low heat, because it's like this is deformed. It's like I can't, you know, like it's not a pressure thing because I've had the needle in there. It won't. So I think I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do that without messing it up. But yeah, I'll attempt that at some point. Because that's the case with all of the balls. They all always get this fucking dent sitting at the bottom. And it's very annoying. Because then once that's, you know, back into... Because look, it's not even, like, properly curved. It's deformed. Hairdryer might work. Could be an option. Because I have one of those little handheld, like, heaters, but I don't know if that would be too much. Up. Did you drop already? From what? But anyway, that's not for today. You can feel ramble hours. Oh. Oh, let's also fill our water. If you haven't got water, you should fill it now. You ready? ASMR. Wasn't much ASMR, but get out. I got it. You have water? Good. Okay. There we go. Okay, well, one pasta jar is empty. If anyone wants to send me more pasta for Christmas. I remind you of your aunt. Well, that's lovely. That was genuine, by the way. That wasn't like a sarcastic, like, That's lovely. I always find it interesting that a lot of people find that I tend to remind them of other people in their lives. I just think that's really interesting. The journey for water was an absolute trip. No, don't faceplant to the ground. Okay, now that we should all have our water, right? Cheers. Yummy, yummy, yummy. To Tiger for being such a brilliant ray of sunshine. Aw, that's cute. Natel sat in the back of her chauffeur-driven limousine, reading about herself in a celebrity magazine. Her chubby face, surrounded by posters of all the films and shows she'd already starred in, smiled out from the page. Child superstar Davina Natel, she read, is back on Broadway in the hit show Stars on Mars. After surprise newcomer Molly Moon quit the part and left New York, Miss Natel was the obvious choice for the lead. Davina fumed. She was sick of Molly Moon's name being mentioned in the same sentence as hers. She hated that bug-eyed, skinny nobody. Stop at the ice cream parlor on Madison. What gift cards do I prefer? I mean, Amazon is always, you know. Can get like some Spa Sadell gift cards to like get me a massage. Olive Garden is always, you know. Or things like Joanne Fabrics or Michaels, because there's one like blanket pattern that I really want to make, and I need yarn for that. Your ears perked up too quickly. I know, that's why I said it out loud, because it said Tiger and I knew that you would. Davina was feeling particularly rattled. She needed a big, sweet ice cream. It had been a bad day at the Broadway theater where she was rehearsing a new Stars on Mars song. To begin with, she'd had a sore throat and couldn't hit the high notes. Then had come the horrible incident that had completely unnerved her. Hang on, I gotta check the pasta. No, okay, we're good. Yeah, Michael's is a craft store. Davina angrily scraped her nail down the cream leather upholstery. She didn't often need her parents, but tonight she was glad they would be at home for once. How dare that weird businessman barge uninvited into her dressing room? How he'd got past the security guards, she didn't know. And what nerve to suppose that she would want to advertise his ugly line of fashion house clothes. Didn't he know he should talk to her agent? The creepy Mr. Sell had given Davina the shivers, and she couldn't erase him from her mind. His eyes seemed to have etched themselves behind Davina's, in the way that staring too long at the sun burns its image into a person's vision. Every time Davina shut her own eyes, she saw his two mad eyeballs staring at her. The car stopped outside her favorite ice cream parlor. Davina fastened her black mink coat and put on the matching gloves. She stepped out into the cold night and waved condescendingly at her chauffeur. She would walk home. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Enjoying the sound of her high-heeled boots on the pavement, she swept into the parlor. Inside, she ordered the house specialty. It was called the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wow. Wow. Determined to banish all thoughts of the strange businessman from her mind, she pulled out her gold-plated fountain pen and began practicing her autograph on a paper napkin. You know, I keep thinking I should rework my signature. Just speaking of, not in an autograph way, but you know how your signature kind of devolves into fucking nonsense? Mine's devolved a lot, so. Should she stick to her curly writing or change her style? When her enormous sundae arrived, she ate it all. 20 minutes later, she was walking home, feeling sick. She realized that a cold March evening wasn't really the best time to eat a large side of it was lit with green lights. Were they broken? The building really did look drab, all dark. She would complain as soon as she saw the doorman. She could see him now, standing by the front door with his taxi-calling light baton. She crossed the broad avenue. The building entrance was only 100 yards away, but now it was a dark 100 yards, lit up at only one point, where a street lamp cast an oval pool of yellow on the pavement. Davina walked towards it. She liked spotlights. Something white and rectangular lay on the ground under the light. Garbage, Davina suspected. Another thing to complain about. However, as Davina approached, she saw that the white rectangle wasn't garbage. It was an envelope. And when she got nearer, she saw something very strange. The envelope had her name on it. A fan letter, Davina thought with pleasure. She took off her glove, picked up the envelope, and pulled out the letter. It read, "Dear Davina, sorry about this, but you know too much." Suddenly, a heavy hand grabbed Davina's arm. She looked up to see a familiar face smiling down at her. Davina felt petrified with fear. Her body went winter cold. Her ears suddenly seemed to stop working. She could no longer hear the sounds of New York. It was as if the cabs and traffic, sirens and horns no longer existed. All Davina could hear was her own voice, her screams as she found herself being dragged toward a parked car. She looked beseechingly up at the uniformed doorman in the distance. "Help! Help me!" But the doorman did nothing. He stood motionless, looking the other way. And desperately kicking and struggling, Davina found herself being pushed into a Rolls Royce as unceremoniously as a stray dog might be forced into a pound van. She was driven away into the night. What a way to start off, am I right? Praise for the cute tiger. Alright, let me check on the pasta again. Julia. Don't want to smack my switch. Julia, who's a good little tiger? It's a good little kitten. It's you, isn't it? Yeah, you're such a good girl for me, aren't you? You're a very good girl. Yeah, and very chaotic. And likes to eat cardboard. Like a silly little goose. A silly little kitten, because that's what you are, isn't it? And it's a good girl. Molly Moon threw a bumper-sized packet of honey wheat puftas up the supermarket aisle. The box flipped through the air, and the fat cartoon bee on it flew for the first and last real flight of its life, before it landed with a crunch in the shopping cart. "Bullseye! 20 points to me," Molly said with satisfaction. A shower of jaw-drop bubble gums came raining down into the cart from over the shelves of cereals. "How can Ruby eat so much gum?" a boy's voice asked from the other shopping aisle. "She's only 5. "She sticks her pictures up with it," said Molly, pushing the metal cart to the canned fish corner. "How can Roger eat so many sardines? That's what I want to know. Cold, too, straight from the can." Oh no. My page got wet somehow. "Yeah, you're a very silly kitten." "Disgusting. You can't stick pictures up with sardines." 10 points for those gums and double it, Green Eyes, because I got them in from the other side. The husky-voiced boy emerged from behind a giant stack of baked beans. His dark brown face was framed by a white hat with ear flaps. He put a large bottle of orange squash concentrate in the cart. "Thanks, Rocky," Molly said. Orange squash concentrate was Molly Moon's favorite drink. She liked to drink it neat. She disentangled a pen from behind her ear and messy hair and wrote down their chucking scores in a small worn notebook. Molly, 1400, 4500, 140, 175, 210. Rocky, 40, 90. His score is 228. Okay, wise guy, you win this week, but I'll be the champ before Easter. Then Molly consulted their list. It said, Happiness House shopping. Boring stuff. Potatoes, onions, tomatoes, parsnips, lettuce, eggplants. All crossed out. Oh, there's lots of stuff. Happiness House was the orphanage where Molly and Rocky lived. When Molly Moon was a baby, she'd been left on its doorstep in a Moon's Marshmallows box, which is how she'd got her name. Until recently, the children's home had been called Hardwick House, and as that name might suggest, it had been an extremely difficult place to live in. But just before Christmas, Molly had been dealt a spectacular, life-changing card. In the library in the nearby town of Briarsville, she found a faded old leather-bound book, The Book of Hypnotism, by Dr. Logan. It had changed Molly's life. After learning the book's secrets and discovering that she possessed incredibly powerful hypnotic skills, Molly had left the orphanage and gone to New York, accompanied by the orphanage pug, Petula. There, she'd used hypnotism to get the starring role in a Broadway musical called Stars on Mars. Molly had fooled and controlled hundreds of people, and she'd made lots of money. But a crook called Professor Knockham had discovered her secret. He had kidnapped Petula and blackmailed Molly into robbing a bank for him. It had been dreadful, until Rocky had showed up and helped her sort Knockman out. Molly had left New York behind, bringing with her the money that she'd earned and a large diamond that had come her way the day of the bank robbery, and Professor Knockham. Back at Hardwick House, things began to get better at last. Molly had removed the witchy orphanage mistress, the building had been renamed, and the kind, although slightly batty widow called Miss Trinkleberry, who had worked at the orphanage before, had come to help permanently. Molly had told her that the money she had brought back from America was from a rich person called the Benefactor, who wanted to help the children's home. Molly had also hypnotized Knockman and brought him with her to be Miss Trinkleberry's assistant. She was hoping that by working with someone as kind as Miss Trinkleberry, Knockman would soon reform and become a genuinely kind person too. So far, the experiment was working well. Molly checked her list. They had about everything down. All the healthy food, the vegetables, and fruit that Miss Trinkleberry had asked for lay squashed at the bottom of the cart underneath milk and fizzy drinks. On top were the special items, the presents for the 6 children from the orphanage who were away. Gordon Boyles and Cynthia Redmond were at an outward-bound course, where Gordon, wanting to look meaner, had shaved his head. Molly had bought shaving foam and razors for him, and chocolates for Cynthia. Gotta get my water. Hazel Hackersley and Craig Redmond, Cynthia's twin, were at a ballroom dancing course, so Molly was sending them lip gloss and teeth whitener. Jinx and Ruby, the 2 5-year-olds, were staying at Miss Trinkleberry's lovely sister's pig farm. Molly was mailing them a package of popcorn and bubblegum. Molly scratched her head, hoping she hadn't gone lice again. All that stuff now is something for everyone who's still at home. Roger needs his his nuts. Poor Roger. He's nuts, said Robbie, lobbing some cashews into the cart. Indeed, Roger Fibbin was. Since Molly had returned, he had grown more and more muddled by the world. He spent most of his time up the orphanage oak tree. Agreed Molly. Get him fucking therapy. You have all this money, get him some therapy. Agreed, Molly. Got my ketchup and Mr. Knockman's parakeet food. Got Gemma's sherbet and Gary's cheesy biscuits. Just need our candy and Miss Trinkleberry's magazines. Molly pushed the heavily laden cart down the last aisle toward the front of the store and scooped up a carton of toffees, a bag of candy sticks, and some Heaven bars, and a giant package of Moon's marshmallows. Rocky plucked Celebrity Globe and Welcome to My World at Home with the Stars from the magazine rack. Kid Natel kidnap. The Briarsville Evening Chronicle declared in black print, but Rocky didn't look at the newspapers. He and Molly piled their purchases onto the checkout conveyor belt. A pretty young woman with thick hair and gentle hands started tapping out prices on her register. Molly looked at her fresh country face and her nylon apron. She could almost belong to a different species from the people on the front of the glossy magazines that lay in front of her. Oscar's special issues, trumpeted the headline on Celebrity Globe, behind a close-up photo of a woman with tumbling golden hair and a smile so full of teeth that Molly thought she must have had extra ones put in. Her lips were like shiny pink slugs. Interesting way to describe lips. And her eyes were like a leopard's. Molly knew her face well. Everyone did. Suki Champagne Academy Award nominee shows us her shoes, it said under the picture. Miss Trinkleberry would be pleased. Her favorite time of year was when the Academy Awards came around, the time when Hollywood handed out prizes, the Oscars, to the most talented people in the film business. Mrs. T usually talked of nothing else for weeks. Welcome to My World had a picture of a man who looked more like a god than a human. His skin was as dark as coal, and he wore a Tarzan-like outfit. His long dreadlocks were blowing perfectly in the wind as he stood in the sun on a cliff top by the sea. Pasta check. Gotta get our sauce. And some seasonings. I maybe left a little bit too much pasta water in it, so it's a little bit soupy. So we're just gonna put a lot of cheese and pray for the best. And by pray for the best, I mean put more cheese in it if it doesn't work. More cheese. Okay. It's very important. Very carefully mix it. Okay. And I'll also let it sit for a little bit. I'm so beautiful and so talented. Thank you. Okay. I'd look just like him if you put me in one of those toga things, said Rocky with a wry smile. I just need to grow my hair longer. And a few muscles, said Molly. Hercules Stone invites us into his Malibu villa, ran the words beside the star's glistening stomach. For a moment, Molly felt a pang of regret. If she'd continued with her starry career in New York, she might have been beside the sea in California this week and on the cover of Welcome to My World. Her hypnotic talent could have gotten her to the very top, but she'd given up her life of fame and wealth to come home and be with her friends and family. Now, she was only special in an ordinary way, just like the checkout girl in front of her. Molly took her change, breathed out happily, and on the way out of the shop tossed all her loose coins into the cardboard cap of the crazy woman who always sat there talking to herself, wrapped in a dirty sleeping bag. "Thank you, my child," she said with a snaggly toothed smile. Molly didn't like people calling her their child, because she was nobody's child. She was an orphan. But that felt mean thinking this about the sad old woman who sat in the supermarket doorway. "That's all right," she said. "Happy New Year, Happy March." Miss Trinkleberry had parked her rusty olive green car in the parking lot by River Briar. Molly and Rocky pushed the cart down the main street, past the butcher's, where they often bought Petula tasty scraps to eat, past the camera shop and the baker's. Soon they had loaded the trunk. Rocky set off to return the cart and to pick up some screws from the hardware store. Molly slid into the passenger seat and pulled her denim jacket around her. She began to pick at some of the foam that was bursting through the white vinyl upholstery and thought about what to do over the rest of the weekend. She might help Rocky make a go-kart or go down to the riding stables and ask for a lesson. Perhaps everyone might want to go for a swim at the Briarsville pools. None of these ideas really inspired Molly, though, for the truth was that what she really wanted to do, what she'd been dying to do for months, was some hypnotizing. But she couldn't. She'd promised Rocky she wouldn't. She and Rocky had agreed that hypnosis was a dangerous tool that would always land them in trouble. Rocky had also learned from Dr. Logan's book. He could hypnotize people using his voice. Molly hadn't mastered voice hypnosis properly, but her powerful hypnotic eyes were far superior to Rocky's voice. Hypnotism had changed her life. For the very first time, Molly had known how it felt to be good at something. Molly missed feeling good like this. In fact, she missed it dreadfully. Life just wasn't as exciting without hypnotism. Ain't that the fucking truth? The promise she'd made was driving her crazy. Another thing had been perplexing Molly since Christmas. Lucy Logan, the person who had made sure that Molly had found and taken the book of hypnotism, had disappeared. Lucy was the great-granddaughter of the author of the book, and she had worked in the Briarsville library. Lucy had hypnotized Molly to find the book in her library, and then, after learning its lessons and having some adventures, to return it to her. Molly thought Lucy was a completely brilliant person. and certainly the most special adult she'd ever met. She felt she owed Lucy a big thank you, and she had been looking forward to making friends with her. But now Lucy Logan had vanished. She'd handed in her notice at the library in January and gone. The watery March light reflected on the cold surface of the river, where a grubby white duck and drake swam about. Molly watched them, trying to divert her mind from hypnotism and Lucy's disappearance. And then, without meaning to, Molly found herself wondering for the millionth time who her parents were. This question was like a mosquito that sometimes tried to fly into her life. When the question bit her, Molly couldn't help but itch it. If she was in a good mood, she would imagine her parents as interesting, fun people who, for some dreadful reason beyond their control, had lost their baby. When she was in a low mood, she saw her parents as two horrible people who had wanted to drown her like an unwanted kitten. But whatever mood she was in, thinking about them was always frustrating, because however hard she tried to picture them, Molly knew she would never know who they were. Molly shut her eyes and tried to calm her babbling mind. She was very good at doing this, as she'd perfected the art of daydreaming when she was very young. Soon she was breathing peacefully and imagining herself dripping upward like a cloud out of Miss Trinkleberry's car and along the course of the River Briar, up into the hills, and all the way up to its source in the highest peak. Molly imagined that she was hovering, as she felt the weight of the earth and the ancient quality of the mountains beneath her. She was reminded how huge the world was, and how unimportant her worries were compared with it. Feeling refreshed, she opened her eyes. She took one of the baguettes out of a shopping bag and ripped off its end. Opening a new ketchup bottle, she knocked some sauce into it. For a few minutes, Molly munched on her favorite snack and looked out over the river. On the far bank, there were fenced-off gardens with terraced cottages behind them. One garden was larger than the others. It seemed to have 2 cottages behind it. Some dense green hedges, clipped into shapes of sitting birds and animals, had recently sprung up in this garden. On the top of one hedge, a huge bird with a long tail was shaped out of branches and leaves, and beside it was a crouching box-hedge hare with 2 distinct ears. On the top of a yew bush sat a big dog with large, hollow eyes, looking as if he was guarding the house. The spring sunshine danced over the shiny foliage of the bush dog. As the light bounced off a glossy twig where his mouth might have been, the creature seemed to smile at Molly. Molly remembered how exciting it had been when she'd first hypnotized Petula last November. She sighed and popped the last piece of ketchupy bread into her mouth. "Oh, thank you, baby." And Twitch added 40 bits for some reason. But cool. It was so difficult keeping her promise not to hypnotize. It was like resisting the urge to walk on your hands once you'd learned, or like stamping on the impulse to jump high when you actually had the power to leapfrog a tree. Molly longed to experience again the warm fusion feeling that washed through her whenever she let her eyes reach their hypnotic peak. Oh, thank you. Now, as the dog's leafy eye twinkled at her, Molly was struck by an idea. She had only promised Rocky not to hypnotize anyone. She had never promised not to hypnotize things. Oh, a cheer over 300 and we'll give 10% extra. Oh, that's nice. Cool. The fusion feeling was lovely. It made Molly feel as if a tropical sun flowed in her veins. The voice in her head urged her on. Go on. Give it a try, Molly. It'll warm you up. Hypnotize the bush dog. What are you afraid of? That it'll jump over the river and bite you? Molly stared at the bush. Hypnotize a bush? A bush couldn't be hypnotized. Exactly, urged her mind, but it will make you feel nice. So, winding down the window, Molly focused in her special way at the topiary dog. She found the faraway feeling inside herself that made everything apart from the dog-shaped bush look blurred. Then she searched for the feeling of bush in herself, And the more she stared at the bush, the more the leaves of the dog seemed to absorb her, and the more the sound of the town grew muffled. Molly felt naughty. Rocky wouldn't be pleased if he knew she was doing this. She'd have to do it quickly before he got back. She waited for the fusion sensation to slowly rise through her body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a hint of the feeling began, as if sparks of electricity were traveling up her backbone into her head to behind her eyes where they circled and throbbed. Her mind felt slightly fizzy, and tiny zapping noises seemed to pop just inside her ears. But somehow, something was different. The sensation flaring up in her was not the familiar fusion feeling. As Molly stared at the dog, her eyes pulsing, the sensation seemed to twist and mutate. Instead of being warm, tingling, it turned into an icy cold prickling under her skin, giving her goose pimples all over. Molly gasped in shock and immediately snapped out of her trance. A sharp clipping noise from across the river reached her ears, and Molly noticed a pair of steel shears snapping shut under the beak of a big topiary bird. She couldn't see the gardener, but whoever he was, he seemed intent upon keeping his bushes trimmed and tidy, keen to control the wild growth of the privet hedge creatures. In the side mirror, Molly saw a fat Miss Trinkleberry wrapped in her crocheted coat, lugging bags of wool back toward her car. Molly's hypnotic experiments would have to wait. As Miss Trinkleberry approached, Molly saw that she was looking very flustered. "Just look at this terrible news," she declared, dropping a newspaper on Molly's lap. The paper shouted out its headline. Is this Hypnopum's new book? No, this is Molly Moon. Hello, hi. Child star disappears. Underneath there was a photograph of Davina Nattel, dressed in an astronaut costume for her role on Stars on Mars. Davina Nattel missing from outside her Manhattan home. Mink glove found at scene. New York police treating the case as abduction. Yep, you're right. Okay, it's less soupy, so that's good. Mixy. I need something to put my hair up. What do you guys think will happen in this book? Thank you for joining us. That bite had a lot of cheese. He joined kind of late. You're not late, don't worry. Well, it has been an hour, but that's okay. We're not very far into the book yet. Yummy. Miss Trinkleberry was beside herself with worry. The poor girl. Her poor parents. Can you imagine it, Molly? Molly could easily. She'd first-hand experience of kidnapping, since her very own Petula had been abducted in New York. But she'd also actually met the famous Davina Nattel, so the news was extra shocking. Even though Molly hadn't liked Davina much, she felt genuinely concerned for her now. That's horrible, she gulped. See, like for the famous isn't all fun, said Miss Trinkleberry, and tutting like a chaffinch? What is that? She plonked a cakey kiss on Molly's forehead. I'm peckish, aren't you? I hope Mr. N's cooking lunch. Look, I've got video for all us to watch this afternoon. It's got Gloria Heelhart in it. It's the one she won her Best Actress award for last year. She's marvelous. It'll take our minds off Davina. As they drove home, Miss Tringleberry sang along to the radio, trying to cheer herself up. She was thrilled that the child pop star Billy Bob Bimble. What a name. Incredible. Was #1 with his hit single, Magpie Man. Don't let him steal your heart, she trolled along. Steal it, steal your heart, ooh. Don't let him have your heart, guard it from the start, ooh. Steal your heart, Magpie Man, ooh. Once the sun and stars and you, oh, Magpie Man. You're welcome for that. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Happiness House. The front of the building was crisscrossed with scaffolding poles. Half of the building was a pristine white, while the other half was still its old gray, flaky self. Petula shot out the front door like a black furry missile. She jumped into Molly's lap, wagging her curly, stumpy tail, and dropped a present of stone. Then she turned around, raced back across the gravel, and came out of the house with a letter between her teeth. Thank you, Petula, said Molly, taking the soggy envelope and peering at it. Molly's name had been printed in neat letters in green ink, but they had smudged, and the address had been licked off. Obviously, Petula had been looking after the envelope for a while. Help me with these bags, could you, Molly? Asked Rocky. They're so heavy, they're cutting into my fingers. Molly put the envelope into her pocket and took a bag from him. That was why she didn't read the letter until later. Ooh. More pasta. Have you guys had lunch yet? If you haven't eaten anything, you should probably eat something. Pretty good fucking pasta, I'm gonna say. You had Wendy's? Good. I'm glad. Still a little soupy on that side. All her life, Molly's home had been a dump, but recently, the dump had been given a facelift. Now Happiness House was completely different inside. For instance, the oak-paneled sitting room, which for so long had been a drafty assembly hall, had new rugs on the floor and pictures on the wall. Comfy armchairs and sofas and tables with books on them filled it. As a log fire that was always lit in the daytime kept it warm. It smelled of beeswax polish, and today it looked very pretty, with pink apple blossoms in vases taken from the wild orchard just outside Hardwick Village. At one end stood a ping-pong table, and at the other a trampoline. After Molly, Rocky, and Miss Tringleberry had put away the groceries, it was time for lunch. Mr. Knockham had stood in the dining room behind the food counter, with the steam from hot vegetables, sausages, and potatoes wafting up into his face. He looked 10 times better than he had when Molly first knew him. His face was much slimmer, with visible cheekbones, and it had a healthy, ruddy complexion. His eyes had whites that were white, not yellow and bloodshot, and his bald pate was shiny and clean. Today he was wearing a pair of baggy gray flannel trousers and a blue zip-up cardigan with a thick red stripe down the back of it. From his shoulder, his favorite parakeet, Chicken Tika, whistled merrily, occasionally hopping sideways to give him a friendly peck on the ear. All in all, the new, retrained Knockman was happier than he had ever been in his life. So as we're learning, some good retraining can make your life all better. He put 3 perfectly cooked sausages that he had been saving onto Miss Trinkleberry's plate. "Would you like beans, my dear?" he asked her in his strange German accent, actually an accent that Molly had hypnotized him to have. "Oh, thank you, Simon," she said as she folded a napkin for him into the shape of a bird. After lunch, everyone crowded into the small TV room. Miss Trinkleberry sat in the armchair, and everyone else found a beanbag or a slice of floor to sit on. Knockman shook the old video machine to get it working, and Miss Trinkleberry's film, The Sighing Summer, began. Apart from an interval where 3 of Gary's mice escaped from his shirt, everyone was glued to the film for 2 hours. As the final scene itself played out, with Gloria Heelheart throwing herself off a cliff into the sea, Miss Trinkleberry wept, and Molly reached into her pocket to find her some tissues. Rediscovering the letter Petula had brought her, Molly slipped out of the room to read it. Petula followed her. They climbed to the top of the stairs, where they both sat down. Molly ripped open the envelope. Inside was a piece of paper, slightly chewed, with the address, 14 Water Meadows Road, Briarsville. Underneath, in green ink, was a message that made Molly's heart flutter with excitement, and at the same time filled her with relief. Friday. Dear Molly, sorry to not be in touch before now, but I've been in the hospital as I had an accident. Don't worry, I'm all right, although for a while it was touch and go. I'm back home and would like to see you. I'll tell you all my news, but more importantly, I'm longing to hear about your adventures with hypnotism. Also, there is something rather important that I would like you to do. Why don't you come for tea on Sunday at 4? I'll see you if I see you. Hope I do. Perfectly punctually? Best wishes, Lucy Logan. Wow, how about that, Petula? Molly said, giving her a squeeze. She was really pleased. At last she was in touch with Lucy Logan again. Molly couldn't wait to see her. She wondered what had made her hand in her notice at the library, and she still thought it odd that Lucy hadn't called her. But perhaps she'd been in the hospital all this time. Molly remembered how she had drifted like a snowflake into the library in the dead of night on Christmas Eve to return the mysterious book of hypnotism that Lucy had hypnotized her to. Lucy had woken her from her hypnotic instruction with the words, perfectly punctually. Molly smiled as she read the same words in Lucy's letter. Molly wondered what Lucy would want her to do. She wanted to thank Lucy, to tell her about New York, and to talk hypnotism with her. There was one other big reason, too. Keeping her promise not to hypnotize anyone really was driving Molly up the wall. It wasn't only frustrating. The thought of never being able to use her powers again was beginning to make Molly feel bereaved, as if something in her had died. Lucy had told Molly that she used hypnotism to do good things for other people. Molly and Rocky had done their own sort of good hypnotism before they left New York. They'd made a hypnotic TV commercial called Check Out the Kids in Your Neighborhood. They thought it would make people who watched it care more about the children around them. The TV company had promised to show it a lot, so it had probably done some good. Molly wanted to ask Lucy to tell Rocky that generous, unselfish hypnotism was okay. Then he might agree to break the hypnotizing ban that they'd made. She'd need to explain all this to Lucy without Rocky being there. For this reason, Molly decided to go to 14 Water Meadows Road alone. More pasta. Keep getting it on my chin. So how are you guys doing? While I chow down real quick. Love some good pasta. Eepy. I get that. Okay, let's continue. And on my next little break, I should be able to finish it. Sunday morning was so bright and shiny that the glossy leaf trees outside Molly's window looked wet. Molly breathed in the frosty air and felt really thrilled. Today, she was going to Lucy Logan's for tea. As two thrushes landed on a prickly red-berried shrub and began pecking at its fruits, Molly noticed Roger Fibbin's skinny form scrabbling about in the dead leaves and broken twigs under the oak tree. With his beaky nose and his jerky movements, he looked like a bird pecking around for grubs. He was probably looking for a magical doorway to another world. Roger had gone a bit mad. He seemed to live in a scary fantasy land where the leaves and stones whispered to him. He roamed the town listening for secret messages, and he made folded paper darts that had writing inside them. They said things like, "Send help quick, aliens have eaten my brain," and "Watch out, the brain centipedes are here," and "Don't judge your body by its skin." Therapy. Therapy. You can feel yourself about to fall asleep while listening. I'd be like that. These he threw around Briarsville, through people's mailboxes, over garden walls, into cars and shops. Once he managed to slip in through the exit door of a cinema and throw 50 of his darts into the audience. Molly wondered whether the peculiar habit he'd developed of eating from Briarsville garbage cans. Therapy! Therapy! You like how whimsical the book is? Oh, it'll only get more. It'll only get more whimsical. Had given him some sort of brain infection, but the doctor said that all he needed was rest, good food, and kindness. Therapy. Therapy. Molly undid the window and called out, "Roger, are you all right?" Roger looked up nervously and then glanced over his shoulder to check that no one was listening. "Yes, they can't get me today." "Do you want to go for a bike ride?" "Can't, Molly. Too much to do. Maybe another day." "Okay, you just let me know when. It would be good fun." She shut the window and wondered whether Roger would ever get better. The morning tipped into the afternoon. It was a lovely, fresh downhill bike ride into Briarsville. The roadside was bursting with young green shoots, crocuses, and daffodils, and the sky was blue. Blossoming trees nodded in the clear March breeze. Other trees were still cold and bare, though the tips of their branches were tinged with dark pink, where new leaves were nearly ready to break out. Molly cycled past Hardwick Village, down the winding road between fields full of cows, past Briarsville Junior School, and into the town. Since it was Sunday, it was very quiet. The Guildhall, with its green pepper-pot roof, was closed, and the broad street was deserted. Water Meadows Road was a narrow, cobbled street, across the bridge and down a turn to the right. Number 14 was a bay-windowed cottage in a row of very old houses. Molly leaned her bicycle against its front wall, and grasping the lion's paw knocker on the door, rapped it twice. Unzipping her jacket, she looked down at her t-shirt and noticed some gravy that she'd spilled on it at lunchtime. She was trying to suck this off when the door slowly opened. Molly let the shirt drop from her mouth. In front of her was a shocking sight, a figure from a horror film, yet wearing the neat pleated skirt, the white-collared shirt, and the plain blue cardigan of Lucy Logan. Its entire head was wrapped in white bandages, except for a patch of hair that was arranged in an elegant bun. Molly could see Lucy Logan's familiar blue eyes in her mouth, but the rest of her face was covered with some sort of dressing. Lucy stood leaning on crutches. Her left foot was in a slipper, but the whole of her right leg was in plaster, and her toes, with pink nail polish on them, popped out of the end of the cast. Molly's first reaction was to gawp, and for a moment she stood transfixed. "Oh, Molly, I'm sorry. Of course, this must be an awful shock for you." Molly barely recognized Lucy's voice, but she nodded and managed to say, "Are you all right? What happened?" Lucy leaned out into the street and nervously looked left and right. Then she pulled Molly inside. "I'll tell you all about it, but come in quick. My toes are getting cold." Molly found herself standing in a small hall. On a semicircular cherry wood table, a mantel clock ticked quietly. Opposite it, a tiny hanging grandmother clock swung a pendulum. As Lucy took Molly's jacket and put it over the back of a chair, Molly breathed in a smell of toast and wondered why her host had just behaved so warily. "Come into the warmth," Lucy said, maneuvering awkwardly on her crutches and leading Molly past a narrow suitcase into a meticulously tidy kitchen. It was so immaculate that Molly looked down at her gravy stain and wished she changed her top. "Sit down," Lucy said kindly, inviting Molly to sit on a crescent-shaped bench in the bay window. "Do you drink tea?" Hot orange squash, if you've got it," said Molly, not quite daring to ask for a concentrated orange squash, which she would have preferred. She didn't want Lucy to think she was weird. "Fine," said Lucy, and she put a kettle on to boil. Molly sat on the bench with her hands wedged between her knees, trying not to stare at Lucy's bandages. What sort of horrible accident had she had? Molly didn't know what to say, and the palms of her hands began to sweat, as they always did whenever she was nervous. Lucy broke the silence. "Molly, I'm so sorry I haven't been in touch. You must have thought it was peculiar that I didn't call you. But the two things happened. First, something very serious took over my life, and I couldn't tell anyone about it. And then I had the accident. My car caught fire. My face is badly burned. I still can't eat much. I have to suck soup from a straw and chew on cookies that dissolve in my mouth. My throat was damaged from all the fumes. My voice has been affected, as you can hear. It's probably always going to be husky. The doctors say my face will be scarred for life and my hair will never grow back in places. But," she gave a lopsided smile, "I'm lucky to be alive, and now I don't take life for granted." Molly was shocked into an awkward silence. In the last few months she had felt annoyed and hurt that Lucy had forgotten her. She had never imagined that something as horrible as this had happened. "Don't worry about not getting in touch," she said quickly. "I mean, I did wonder where you'd gone. But I was busy straightening out the orphanage, the redecorations and things, and it's all thanks to you, Lucy. Everything's much cozier now. Everyone's happier. School's much better, too, because Miss Toley left. Well, actually, she was fired." "I heard it was because she went around telling everyone what a dreadful teacher she was," said Lucy. "Which she was," said Molly, hoping that Lucy wouldn't disapprove of the fact that Molly had hypnotized the bullying Miss Toadley into behaving like this. "But I haven't done any hypnotizing at all since I got off the plane before Christmas," she added. She hoped Lucy would be impressed by the self-restraint, but the librarian gave her a sharp look. "You've stopped? Why would you stop? Don't you need anything?" Last paused a bit. It got cold really fast. That's okay. What a beautiful voice. Thank you. The, center of my lipstick is gone. And water. Okay. Release the hair. Molly was taken aback. I didn't think about that. I just promised Rocky that I wouldn't use it anymore. Oh dear. Lucy fell silent. Then she said, "Bring your drink and these cookies. We'll go into the sitting room." She hobbled through another door. Molly followed, and the glory of the room beyond took her attention away from Lucy's bandages. The room was a shrine to hypnotism. In the center of it was a table that had a circular swirl inlaid in copper. Molly looked at the pattern. It reminded her of a similar swirl that had been painted on a pendulum she'd once owned. The copper design seemed to draw her eyes toward the dot at the table's center. At once, she felt relaxed. Immediately, she snapped away. "Is that a hypnotic table?" "It can be," said Lucy. "Me." "I'll have to watch you this time," said Molly, smiling. "I can't believe you hypnotized me so easily last November in the library." "Well, as I told you, I wanted you to find the book," said Lucy. "Don't worry, I don't need to hypnotize you ever again." "I'm too alert to be hypnotized anyway," said Molly, following the copper swirl with her finger. "I've heard that before." Many times. Indeed, Molly was. Everything in this room reminded her of the incredible power of hypnotism. Above the mantelpiece, over a cheerful fire, hung a portrait of a bewhiskered Victorian gentleman in a black tailcoat and top hat. From his waistcoat top pocket came a golden chain that was attached to a shiny pocket watch. Molly instantly recognized the old man from his picture in the Book of Hypnotism. "Yes, there's the great Dr. Logan himself," said Lucy, settling down in a chair. "All over the room are things that belong to him that have been passed down through the family. The table, and in the cabinet behind you there's the very pocket watch that he's holding in that portrait. He used it as a pendulum. He went all over America, and that's how he made his fortune. I've got lots of pictures of him in his traveling hypnotism show. There's his collection of miniature clocks, too. Have a look." Molly went to the cabinet. Sepia-colored photographs of Victorian people stood in silver frames. In one, Dr. Logan was on a stage, posing theatrically beside a peculiar figure. Lying flat and balanced between a couple of chairs, her head on one and her feet on another, lay a woman. Nothing supported her body. Her long dress had been bunched up like a tied-up umbrella, so that it didn't drag on the floor, and she was as stiff as a board. Molly knew it was a hypnotism trick called the human plank. Molly inspected the golden pocket watch and then looked at the tiny carriage clocks. On the wall beside the cabinet were 3 more clocks, a round one, a castle-shaped one, a pewter clock. They were all showing the correct time. "I've never seen so many clocks in one home," she said. "Well, you've probably never been in the house of a clock collector," said Lucy. "Clocks remind me that life is short, and that I mustn't waste it." As Molly thought about this, she looked out the sitting room window. It was then that she noticed that in Lucy's garden was the very one where the topiary animals grew. The hare and the dog were very close to the window, making the room darker than it should be. "Wow! I was looking at your animal bushes yesterday," Molly exclaimed, without realizing that they belonged to you. "Are they new? I've often looked over the river from the parking lot, and I've never seen them before." "Yes, they are new. I bought the plants fully grown and clipped them myself." "I like the dog with the big eyes," said Molly. Lucy laughed. "It's supposed to be a bush baby. I obviously need to go to topiary classes." She reached for a cookie. "Help yourself, Molly." "I shouldn't, really. I've put on so much weight since the accident. I've eaten hundreds of cookies." She shifted uncomfortably in her skirt and undid its zipper a bit. "The bushes are there for a reason. They're to stop people from looking in." Lucy suddenly seemed nervous. "I can't be sure who's watching me at the moment." She paused. "Molly," she said, sounding serious. I've got an awful lot to tell you today, but first I want to hear all the things that happened to you after you read the book. It's very important that I know. Sure, said Molly, curious about Lucy's mysterious business, but dying to tell her about her amazing experiences, and so she launched into her story. I had an incredible time, in fact the best time I've ever had, mixed with the worst time. Lucy Logan listened intently, but she wasn't interested as Molly thought she might be. What Lucy Logan was most intent upon was whom Molly had hypnotized, and how. She questioned Molly about exactly how she had hypnotized an audience at the Briarsville talent show. Salem is still sleeping. So that she'd won. Then how she'd hypnotized a flight attendant, and how she'd hypnotized the hotel staff in New York, and how she'd won over the whole audience of New Yorkers in the show Stars on Mars. She wanted exact details about the methods Molly and Rocky had used when they robbed Shoring's bank after Nachman had blackmailed them. Her questions were so thorough, it was almost as if Lucy was testing Molly. So, she said eventually, you gave all the money and jewels back to the bank. That was extremely honest of you. Not many people would have done that. Molly said nothing. Her fingers automatically reached for the diamond that hung around her neck. She decided not to tell Lucy about that for now. She didn't want Lucy to disapprove of her. Lucy, she said instead, wiping her lips on her sleeve. What about you? Now it's your turn to tell me about your hypnotic adventures. Lucy's blue eyes looked at Molly Moon from behind their white frame of bandages, and she said in a serious voice, Molly, we haven't got time for my stories now. The special work that made me hand in my notice to the library is very grave. It's why I didn't get in touch. I didn't want you to get involved because I didn't want to put you in danger. But the time has come for you to know what's been going on. Lucy took a deep breath. You thought you were coming over for an entertaining tea, but I've invited you here to ask you to do something very, very important. I'm extremely sorry, but I have no other choice. Time is running out. Molly gulped. She didn't like the way the afternoon was turning out. Lucy stood up. Please come with me. Molly followed Lucy through a passageway hung with half a dozen more clocks. A flight of stone stairs led to the basement. Lucy hobbled slowly down them. At the bottom was a door with 4 locks on it, 2 combination padlocks, and 2 locks with keys. Molly wondered what could need such protection. There are secrets in here, said Lucy, that have to be kept hidden. Secrets that will interest you. Come in. The basement room inside wasn't what Molly expected at all. She associated the librarian with shelves of old books and card index files, not this high-tech space with shelves of metal files. On the far wall was a plasma screen. Hidden ceiling lights illuminated the gray carpet and shone on a table in the center of the floor, which bore a white keyboard, a computer mouse, a velvet mouse pad, and 2 miniature bonsai trees. A glass-sided display case sat under the white screen. It contained 6 pairs of tiny colored shoes. Ah, those are old Chinese lotus shoes, explained Lucy, seeing Molly looking at them. Some of them date back to the Southern Tang dynasty of A.D. 920. They were worn by girls who'd had their feet bound so they could never grow big. Aren't they lovely? Did you go to China on your adventures? Asked Molly, unsettled by the strange little shoes. No, Lucy sat on a chrome swivel chair and gestured to Molly to sit on another. She turned on the computer. Quiet whirring noises came from a wall of steel equipment, and the large screen showed a menu of many labeled files. Molly, she said, her tone solemn, I handed my notice in at the library because I discovered something, and I've spent every moment of the past few months investigating it. It's something very frightening that's going on in the world. Something that will affect you, me, everyone. Whatever this bad thing was, Molly knew she didn't want to have anything to do with it. She wiped her clammy hands on her jeans as Lucy double-clicked on a computer file called L.A. It summed up a picture from the front page of the Los Angeles Times. The headline read, Davina Nattel, child star, feared snatched. There was the familiar face of the young actress grinning as she hugged a puppy. I suppose you've heard about this, said Lucy. The police can't find any leads. The poor girl has completely vanished. Poor Davina, said Molly. I hope she's all right. I expect she isn't, said Lucy. I think Davina has been abducted by a person who has a lot of influence over the police force, so there isn't any chance he will ever be caught. Who? Asked Molly. How do you know? Before I tell you who I think he is, I want to show you a few things. A series of pictures filled the screen. Oddly, they were all pictures from advertisements. First, there was a red Prismo Speed sports car, then a green Nice Splice lawnmower, next a CompuCell computer, then a Heaven Bar ice cream. Images of different objects that weren't connected passed in front of Molly's eyes. She recognized a lot of them. The blue and silver inspiration satin pen, a schlick-schlack knife, okay, a polka-dotted fashion house dress, a jar of Navy Girl soup, a box of honey wheat puftas, a roll of sumptuous toilet paper, a pot of fresh space face cream, a Vitawell yogurt, and a squeezy bottle of Bumbalot dishwashing liquid. Molly wondered what these everyday things could possibly have to do with the terrible kidnapping of Davina Natal. Lucy asked suddenly, How do you choose the things that you buy, Molly? By knowing what I want, replied Molly, not sure if this was the right answer. A can of Cube jumped around on the screen, as if it was trying to help her. But how do you know what you want? Asked Lucy. There are so many wonderful things. For instance, look at all these candies. Lucy clicked, and dozens of different brands of candies popped up on the screen. Jaw Drop gums, Cuckoo toffees, Heaven Bar chews. How do you know which candy to buy? Well, I know the ones I like. Yes, but before you first tasted those candies that you now know you like, how did you know to try them? Because I'd heard about them? From who? From friends? And? From ads? Good, said Lucy. Molly wondered what Lucy meant. She didn't think ads were very good. Weren't all ads brainwashers? It's good that you understand that advertisements have the power to make people buy things, Lucy said. Now I want you to look at these faces. Onto the screen came a selection of famous faces that Molly mostly recognized. There were movie stars and singers and celebrities. Gloria Heelhart, the Queen of Hollywood, Suki Champagne, the young star, Billy Bob Bimble, the boy singer, Hercules Stone, Cosmo Ace, King Moose, the boxer, and Tony Wham, the karate expert. I wonder, said Lucy, stopping on a picture of a red-haired woman with big brown eyes, whether you know what this woman likes to eat after she's been to the gym. It was a peculiar question, but then Molly realized that she knew exactly what Stephanie Goulash, the chart-topping singer, liked to eat. Mighty Lighties, Molly said, feeling as if she was on a TV quiz show. Absolutely correct, said Lucy. And how about this one, the movie star, Hercules Stone? What deodorant does he use? In the groove, the words tumbled out of Molly's mouth before she'd even registered that she knew the answer. Craig was always going on about Hercules Stone, about what he ate, what he wore, what he rolled under his famous armpits. Good, said Lucy again. So you can see how these celebrities, like ads, are showing people what to buy. Molly nodded. Billions of people know these things, just like you do. And this is what I'm worried about. Molly couldn't imagine why Lucy would be worried. Should be worried. Perhaps Lucy was old-fashioned and didn't think stars should let people into their private lives. But what on earth did this have to do with Davina's kidnapping? Lucy clicked up some video clips. There was a Mighty Lighty ad that finished with a tiny Stephanie Goulash sitting on top of a giant version of the famous cereal bar. In another, Hercules Stone brandished the stick of In the Groove as if it was a sword and fought off a pack of little green monsters. 20 ads, ranging from lipsticks to washing machines, featured showbiz celebrities, sports stars, TV personalities. Molly recognized almost all of them. Here's the most important thing, said Lucy. All the products in these ads are made by companies owned by one man. Each time one of these things is sold, he gets richer. He must be very rich then, Molly remarked. Isn't it an odd coincidence that so many celebrities should choose to advertise his products? Said Lucy. None of them promote anything else from any other company. Well, he probably pays them mountains of money to do it, said Molly. I don't think he pays them, said Lucy. With a sudden swivel of her chair, she turned to look Molly full in the face. I think he hypnotizes them. What? Molly, you must have realized how powerful hypnotism is. You must know that if it gets into the wrong hands, it could be a very dangerous weapon. Molly nodded slowly. She didn't want to hear what was coming next. I've long suspected, Lucy continued, that one day someone would try to make a lot of money through hypnotism. My great-grandfather always feared this possibility. He was right. Hypnotic power goes to bad as well as to good people. Bad people who can hypnotize are very greedy and destructive. This businessman is very dangerous. The screen was filled with the giant head and shoulders of a tall, smartly dressed, gray-haired man wearing a baseball cap, who stood arm in arm with two famous baseball players. He is a multi-billionaire. He's so rich, Molly, that he makes more money in one day than all the people in Briarsville make together in 1 year. His name is Prismo Cell. Molly stared, fascinated, at more pictures of the suave, tanned tycoon. All his features were unremarkable, except for his eyes. One was turquoise, the other brown, and together the duo were stunningly magnetic. Molly just wanted to gaze at them. Here he was on a safari, holding a lion cub, and here 1,000 feet up in the basket of a hot air balloon. There were clips of him coming out of restaurants and at parties with the celebrities who had been on the screen earlier. Suki Champagne, Hercules Stone, Gloria Heelhart, Stephanie Goulash, and Cosmo Ace. Prismo Cell is a hypnotist. I'm sure of it, said Lucy. I am also a hypnotist, and a very skillful one. My understanding of the art made me begin to suspect him some time ago. The more I discovered, the more I know I'm right. And there's more. 12 years ago, this man knew no one. Look. Up came a photograph, recognizable as the same, much younger man, dressed in a t-shirt and jeans, holding a sign that read, Make your pets vegetarian, buy nice pet foods. His first business was a ridiculous failure. It was a nice idea, though, said Molly, thinking how Petula liked strawberries. That's why they were called nice pet foods. Compare that man to today's Prismo Cell. Cell is getting richer and more powerful every day. This man now has hundreds of companies and millions of people all over the world buying his goods. The stars happily advertise his products, things they normally wouldn't be seen dead with. Look at this picture of Hercules Stone doing the dishes using Bubble-Lot. This is not doing Stone's career any good. He's supposed to be the sort of glamorous guy who never has to lift a finger. He wouldn't do this ad unless he was forced to, or hypnotized to. Molly's mind was racing. She was finding Lucy's ideas difficult to take in. Can't you go to the police? I have been to the police. It was stupid of me. Of course they thought I was crazy. A week later, I had the accident. Lucy shuddered as she remembered. I was lucky to get out of that burning car. If I hadn't been to the police, it wouldn't have happened, I'm sure of it. Prismo Cell watches his back, Molly. Someone with secrets like him has to. He has people under his power high up in the police force here and in America. I'm absolutely certain if I were to speak out again, I'd have another accident. Spoopy. Things are getting worse. Cell's influence is spreading like rot. He's controlling people's minds. Close up and from afar, and they don't know it. People's minds are supposed to be free places, Molly. My greatest fear is that Cell has bigger ambitions than making money. Powerful people are already saying that he should run for president. What? President of the United States? Exactly. Wouldn't you want to be president if you were a power-crazed egomaniac that could make people do whatever you wanted? Molly nodded. This made sense. I have no proof yet that he'll run for president this year, but it's very possible. He could make people support him, and he's got all the money to pay for an election campaign. A puzzling thought struck Molly. But Lucy, hypnotism wears off. Prismocell won't be able to keep thousands of people under his control. He'll have to keep hypnotizing all those stars and celebrities and police officers and politicians and whoever else. Lucy nodded. You would think that would be the case, but Cell already has so many people under his control, and some of them he's had for years. I think that somehow he's found a way to keep his subjects hypnotized permanently. I think he's discovered a new hypnosis, much more powerful than ours. Molly screwed up her face as she digested this. It was a frightening idea. Lucy hadn't finished. I'm also sure that Cell is divine Davina Natel's disappearance. My research shows that Cell planned to launch a new line of kids' clothes through his fashion house company this year. I found several pictures in the papers of him coming out of the Manhattan Theater after seeing the show Stars on Mars. He must have wanted Davina to promote Fashion House. My hypnotist instincts tell me that something went wrong. Perhaps Davina didn't go along with his plans. Perhaps she found out his secret. Perhaps somehow, astonishingly, she resisted his hypnotism. Whatever happened, my feeling is he had to get rid of her. The man is out of control. If you've ever been on a roller coaster ride, you will know that fearful feeling you get while being cranked up to the top before you swoop terrifyingly downward. Your stomach feels full of waves and apprehension. Molly's instincts told her that a fast, furious ride was seconds away. She found herself gripping the arms of her chair. Lucy reached for her shoulder, as if to prepare her. We must find out how his new kind of hypnotism works. How he keeps his victims under his power permanently. We? Asked Molly faintly. Molly, you may not realize it, but you have more than a talent for hypnosis. You have a very special gift. Your performance as a hypnotist in New York was absolutely amazing. Only someone as good as you could stand up to Prismocell. I've never come across anyone with powers like yours. Because you can help, you must. If you don't, dreadful things will happen in the world. And think of poor Davina. Molly blushed from all of Lucy's flattering words, but at the same time she was dreading whatever invitation she felt was coming her way. What do you want me to do? I want you to go to Los Angeles, in America, to Prismocell's headquarters. Up came a photograph of a dark blue glass office building with palm trees in front of it. This is where he works, and this is his home. A gray house behind cedar trees, a high wall, and a big metal gate filled the screen. First and foremost, you must find out whether Cell is behind Davina's abduction, and then find out where she is. Help her if you can. Investigate Cell. Talk to some of the stars who are under his power. Report back to me. Lucy paused. I'll send you money, so you don't have to worry about that. You'll have to use a lot of hypnotism to get information, but I know you can do it. Will you, Molly? Molly thought of how miserable her life had been before she found the hypnotism book, how happy she was now. She owed her happiness to Lucy. How could she refuse to help her? But when she looked up at that impregnable steel gate and thought of the gentle librarian fighting to escape from her burning car, she trembled inside. She didn't want to go to America and take on this dangerous man. But she felt herself nodding her head. I'll do it, she said. But she couldn't help blurting out, But what if Prismocell hypnotizes me? This isn't without risk, Molly. I won't pretend it is. But if that should happen, I assure you, I will do everything to get you back. Molly rubbed her sweaty hands up and down her jeans. You are probably feeling that this is too grown up for you, Lucy told her. But it's not. I mean, it is, but... You're a genius hypnotist, and you are a brilliant secret weapon. I'll tell you why. You can investigate Cell without casting the slightest suspicion on yourself, because you, Molly Moon, are a child. Prismocell will never suspect a child. Molly felt as if she just swallowed a pill that was going to change her life. So when do I go? She asked. It was lucky that Molly had a light on her bicycle, as she didn't leave Lucy's until after dark. She strapped the briefcase Lucy had given her onto the rear rack and pedaled warily through Briarsville and up the hill out of town. She felt cheated. She'd arrived at Lucy's cottage wanting to listen to stories about hypnotism. Instead, the afternoon had been hijacked by Prismo's cell. Molly disliked him already. What she had learned felt slightly unreal. Imagine if someone gathered undeniable evidence that proved all birds were really extraterrestrials here to take over the world. You'd doubt the information was really true, even if the facts were staring you in the face. This was how Molly felt about Prismo's cell. Yet Molly knew firsthand just how easy it could be to control people. In her gut, she felt that what Lucy had told her was true. Molly didn't dwell on what might happen should Prismo's cell catch her investigating him. If he had kidnapped Davina, then he was crazy, a nutcase, and really dangerous. She wished he had a fast car with lots of gadgets in it. Instead, she was on an old chopper bike. But there were two things that excited Molly. Lucy had given her a new license to hypnotize, and Molly was going to Los Angeles. Back at Happiness House, Gemma and Gary were cleaning out Jerry's mouse cage. They were about to make a strange discovery. Jerry's 10 mice ran around in a cardboard box, looking confused. "When did you last do this?" asked Gemma, her face puckering at the smell. "I've cleaned the worst parts 4 times since Christmas. I haven't touched the parts over there, as they don't get dirty." "Why don't they get dirty?" "Because that's where the mice sleep." Gemma reached in and pulled out straw and rags. Jerry gave a tug at a pile of paper in the clean corner. "See," he said, "this paper looks brand new, just a bit nibbled at the sides." He dropped it on the floor. "It's got something written on it," said Gemma, picking it up again. She gathered up the torn pages. It says, "The Book of I can't read that, it's been written. This bit says, 'Ancient Art Revealed.' What do you think that means?" "Dunno," said Jerry, wringing out a sponge and mopping the cage. "Something about painting pictures in an old-fashioned way." "It's a photocopy," said Gemma, gently peeling the pages apart. It's about hypnotism." "Where did you get this, Jerry? Is there any more of it?" Gemma looked into the back of the cage. "There might have been, but I probably threw it away." "What's hypnotism?" "You know, where you make someone go all dreamy and then you tell them to do things." "Where did this come from?" "From a garbage can, ages ago." "Whose garbage can?" "I don't know, either Ruby or Rocky's. They both use the most paper. Rocky always throws away the words of songs he's made up. I thought that was a song. But Gemma, don't read it now. You said you helped me with my mice." Gemma was too engrossed to continue her mice work. "This might be important," she muttered. "I'm going to go to the linen cupboard and read this. You can meet me up there." 20 minutes later, Jerry and Gemma were crouched cross-legged on piles of towels in the dark linen cupboard. In the pencil beam of a small flashlight focused on the scrappy pile of photocopied paper. "Do you think we could really learn how to do it?" asked Jerry. "We can try that on your mice," answered Gemma. "Now? I've got Victor in my pocket." "No, we've got to learn it properly first. Pity all the lessons aren't here. Jerry, this is top secret. Understand?" "Understand," said Jerry, and they knocked their fists together to seal the deal. Molly arrived back at Happiness House, desperate to talk to Rocky. She hoped that he hadn't gone on one of his wanders. He wasn't in the TV room where Miss Trinkleberry was watching a program about patchwork. Eventually, she found him in the kitchen with Petula on his lap, reading a newspaper. Next to him was Knockman, who was studying a bird training manual. "Psst," Molly whistled from the doorway. "Uh-oh," Rocky said as he and Petula came out into the corridor and Molly grabbed his sleeve and hurried him upstairs. "What's up? Where'd you get the briefcase?" Molly ushered him to the window seat at the end of the top floor hallway and sat him down. There, in a whisper, she told him everything that had happened at Lucy Logan's. Then she opened the case and showed him the photographs and maps of Prismo-Cell's neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Rocky shrugged his shoulders. "The whole thing sounds crazy to me. I don't believe it." "You're just saying you don't believe it because you don't want to come, because it sounds dangerous. But please, Rocky, you've got to help me. I'm not the only one who can hypnotize around here." But I'm not a quarter as good as you, Molly. So you do believe this is true? I never said that. Well, even if you don't believe it, you'd enjoy a vacation in Los Angeles, said Molly confidently. But since when would Rocky Scarlet turn down a trip to the sunny LA? Urged Molly. Bet you'd never get asthma there. But, Rocky, there's no way I'm going by myself, Molly said, louder than she meant to. Listen, it's much warmer than here, and they have beaches. We'll only be gone a month or so. I can't do it without you, Rocky. Please come with me. Petula suddenly sat up and wagged her tail hard. Someone was at the end of the corridor. Jerry and Gemma approached sheepishly. From inside the cupboard, they'd heard the last part of Molly and Rocky's conversation. Although embarrassed to have been caught listening, they were burning with curiosity. What vacation? What beaches? Where are you going? We want to come too, said Gemma. Yes, said Jerry. You can't leave us behind. Last time you left us behind, it was horrid. Remember? You can't come, Molly began. Then she stopped. Gemma and Jerry had never been on vacation. She thought of them on a beach with buckets and spades, or in the sea body surfing, or in a tour bus at one of Los Angeles' film studios, and her heart melted. They would love it, and she didn't see how they would get in the way. In fact, it might be an advantage if they came. You know, Rocky, if Miss Trinkleberry came to look after them, we'd look like a normal family on vacation. And Knockman could help too. Molly was thinking that actually Knockman's criminal knowledge might come in useful. He was particularly good at picking locks. What about the others? They'll all be back from their courses next week. Why don't we ask Miss Trinkleberry's sister to have them stay on her farm? Suggested Molly. Rocky nodded. I'll have to have a word with Mr. Strutfield, said Molly, thinking how she would have to hypnotize their headmaster. Okay, Gemma, when Miss T's finished watching her program, I'll tell her that we've all been asked to go to LA by the benefactor. Rocky grinned. And I'll find a nice hotel there where we can all stay, and Knockman can organize plane tickets, leaving as soon as possible. Does that mean we're going? Asked Jerry, not sure what had been agreed. Sure does, said Rocky. Woo! Shouted Jerry. Woo! And not knowing what to do with all his excitement, he started jumping up and down like a coffee-drinking kangaroo. L.A., 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 he shouted, running up the hall and back again. For a moment, he stopped. Where is L.A.? he asked. L.A. stands for Los Angeles, said Rocky. It's in California. In America. Whoa! America? Wow! After that, Jerry was unstoppable. He bounced down the stairs and around the hall and up the stairs again and down again and up again, shouting, No more school! No more school! Gemma thanked Molly and Rocky 10 times and then rushed into her bedroom to pack. It's the right decision, said Molly, because if we didn't take them and something bad happened to us there, then they'd never get a vacation. What might happen to us? Asked Rocky, raising an eyebrow. The same thing as Davina? I don't know, but this Mr. Sell is a power-crazed maniac, and a brilliant hypnotist. Cheapers, Rocky, what are we letting ourselves in for? Trouble, said Rocky, matter-of-factly. Yeah, tons of trouble. Over the next 3 days, Molly watched Happiness House erupt with anticipation. Miss Trinkleberry was so delighted about the idea of a vacation that she threw her apron on the fire to celebrate. She was very excited about going to Los Angeles and Hollywood, the movie capital of the world, home of the stars she adored. She harbored hopes that she would meet some of them. Knockman wasn't entirely pleased to be going back to America. That was where he had, until recently, spent his whole life, and he didn't want to be reminded of his unwholesome past and the crimes he had committed. He worried that he might be tempted to do something bad again, but Miss Trinkleberry, who was helping him reform, said that it would be good for him. So he carefully constructed a traveling box for his 20 parakeets. Molly had told him that the benefactor was managing the flight arrangements for all the pets. Knockman automatically believed her. He always respected what Molly said, although he wasn't exactly sure why. He was glad the birds could come, because he wouldn't have gone otherwise. 2 matters had to be dealt with by hypnotism. One by Rocky,
the other by Molly. Rocky's challenge was to find hotel rooms for them. Their trip to Los Angeles coincided with its busiest week of the year, the night of the Academy Awards, when the best actors, actresses, directors, producers, and film people would win the coveted golden Oscar statuettes for their work, was in a week's time. Every single room in every hotel had been booked months in advance. "I hate to do this," said Rocky as he picked up the phone. "Because of us, some people are going to lose their rooms." "Aren't you nervous that you've forgotten how to do long-distance hypnosis?" Molly asked, but Rocky shook his head. "Hypnotizing people is like riding a bicycle, don't you think? Once you've learned, you never forget." Molly was amazed by Rocky's confidence, and very impressed when, 10 minutes later, he came out of the TV room with news that they now had 2 bungalows and a room reserved at the hotel called the Chateau Marmont. "All I needed was a bit of time," said Rocky. "As long as they listen to me, they melt like butter in my hands." Hydrate. Cheers. Thanks, baby. Molly, however, was incredibly nervous about her hypnotic challenge. She had to visit their headmaster and hypnotize him into giving his permission for her, Rocky, Gemma, Roger, and Jerry to go to Los Angeles, and for the rest of the orphanage children to stay on Miss Trinkleberry's sister's farm. Molly was worried she might have lost her hypnotic skills, especially since she'd had that ice-cold fusion feeling when she tried to hypnotize the bush. In the headmaster's office, Molly started by explaining the trip to California was educational. They'd been learning about earthquakes and the desert and the American Congress, she said, so the trip would be very informative. The other children have been asked to stay on a pig farm, where they will learn about pigs. You know, pigs and sop and manure and agriculture. This will also be very educational. Mr. Stretfield seemed to think the idea splendid because he said, "I'm very impressed that you have come to ask my permission yourself, Molly. I like children with initiative. A good golf player has initiative. A sense of, if you want the ball to go in a certain direction, learn how to hit it. Don't wait for someone else to hit it for you. Don't you agree?" "Yes, sir. If you ask me, farms ought to turn their land over to golf courses, don't you think?" Molly said nothing. "So you're all off to Los Angeles and farms. Well, I hope you have a very educational time, and if you can, play a little golf for me, eh?" "Thank you, sir. Yes, sir." With that, his phone rang, and picking it up, Mr. Stretfield nodded to Molly that she could go. Molly couldn't believe it. She'd actually persuaded him to let them all off school without hypnosis. She didn't know exactly how Mr. Stretfield had been so easy to win over, but feeling very pleased with herself, she went back to the classroom. And so it was that a few days later, a small minibus was loaded and 38 passengers, 5 children, 2 adults, 20 parakeets, 10 mice, and 1 pug, took their places on board. Even Roger was eager to come. Happy, he said, to be getting away from the voices he was hearing. Molly, at last, and for the first time in months, had to test her hypnotic powers. She thought her skills might have grown rusty, but they hadn't. She easily hypnotized the airline attendants. One bolting glare from her green eyes was all it took. The warm fusion feeling blasted through her, and she knew they were under her power. The animals were allowed through, and soon they were all settled on the plane. The flight wasn't anything like Molly's solitary one to New York before Christmas. This flight was chaotic as well as noisy. When the jumbo took off, Miss Trinkleberry started a shouting out her prayers thing that lasted off and on for most of the flight. Halfway across the Atlantic, Jerry lost a mouse. Victor, his prize buck, broke loose and made his way up to the plane toilets, where he got locked in with a hairy backpacker. When she burst out of the cubicle, shouting that she'd seen a squirrel, Victor quietly made his way back to Jerry's seat. Madam, it's impossible that a squirrel could get on board," the flight attendant assured the backpacker. "It's a long flight. Perhaps you should drink some water and do some of the calming exercises that we recommend." Molly would normally have wanted to get off a flight like this, with Miss Trinkleberry being so embarrassing, but as it was, she wished it would go on and on and on. Then she wouldn't have to investigate the danger that was Prismo's cell. She told this to Rocky. "If you're scared," he replied, "think of how terrified Davina must be, wherever she is. If she is alive, and Cell has taken her, she needs you to rescue her." "She's the only reason I'm going," said Molly. "I wouldn't risk my life just to check out those stars. Anyway, I suppose I owe Davina. I did steal her part in Stars on Mars before Christmas." Molly leaned down to put a slice of salami in Petula's basket. Petula was very well behaved on planes. After 11 hours, the plane wheeled above the bright lights of Los Angeles. Molly stared out at the enormous city below. It seemed to stretch out for hundreds of miles in all directions. She couldn't help wondering where Prismo's cell was right now, among those millions of buildings. Then the tires hit the tarmac and they were safely down. Everyone put their watches back 8 hours. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. Soon they were all standing in baggage claim, half asleep, waiting for their suitcases. The only people with any energy left were Jerry and Gemma, who were giving rides on the baggage carousel to Jerry's toy superheroes. Molly watched a small red case trundling along on the conveyor belt. Exhausted as she was, she let her eyes linger on it, absorbing its rough textured surface and the color of its tarnished buckles. For a moment, the airport seemed very far away, and it was as if she and the suitcase were the only things that existed. A moment later, Molly felt as if the suitcase was inside her mind. It was a strange feeling, but not a completely new one. It reminded Molly of the sensation she got whenever she was hypnotizing a person. A slipping sensation that just happened before her subject went into a trance, when she could feel their personality weakening and starting to belong to her. Molly thought how odd it was to be feeling this with a suitcase, and then, as she sleepily gazed, the familiar warm fusion feeling started to spread through her body. But seconds later, the feeling turned icy cold. It was exactly the same thing that had happened with the topiary dog. Shocked, Molly snapped her attention away from the case. It was very peculiar. This obviously had something to do with staring at objects. What would happen, Molly wondered, if she let the freezing feeling continue? Would she find that she'd hypnotized the object she was looking at? That was ridiculous. How could a suitcase be hypnotized? Next time, she decided, she would experiment and see what the cold fusion feeling grew into. Everyone gathered their bags and cases and hauled them into luggage carts. Dazed and weary, they made their way to the taxi stand. No one noticed a luggage porter approaching them. "Hey, excuse me," he said, his face beaming with recognition, "but ain't you the girl and the boy on the Check Out the Kids in Your Neighborhood commercial?" Your personality weakening. Yeah, I know. Let me take a little break. What are you guys thinking so far? Interesting plot, don't you think? Mind control conspiracy. We don't think, you know what? That's fair. That's fair. I think I'll read one more chapter, and then I think we'll be good for today. You fell asleep. Well, I guess that just means that you'll have to watch the stream again, doesn't it? Snapping. All right. Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All the way down. Nice and relaxed. No thoughts, just take a deep breath for me. In and out. Good. Panda Papa. My gut for me. Okay. This is the next chapter. We'll read the next chapter and then I think we'll stop. Molly was stunned. It had never crossed her mind that the hypnotic charity TV ad that she and Rocky had made in New York could have been watched by people in Los Angeles. How many more people in the airport had recognized her? Yeah, that was us, she told him reluctantly. Great work, said the smiling porter. Let me give you folks some assistance. He took Molly's cart and led them straight to the front of the taxi line. Here he loaded their bags into a waiting minibus and waved them off. So much for Lucy saying that because we're children we won't be suspected, whispered Rocky as they sank into their seats. Prismocell probably saw the ad and has been looking for 2 kid hypnotists ever since. Molly was too shaken by the incident to say anything. Soon, the minibus was heading out from underneath concrete columns toward the city of Los Angeles. Molly sat with Petula on her knee, wishing that they hadn't come. She tried to let the new surroundings distract her from thoughts of Prismocell, but it was an impossible task. Once the bus had left the airport, they headed out on a road dotted with huge billboards. On either side, ads showed schlick-schlack knives, nutritious Navy Girl soup, and sumptuous toilet paper. These are some interesting brand names. In which the boxer King Moose was pictured having a fight with a giant toilet paper roll. Sales companies. His influence was everywhere. Another poster that kept being repeated was of a politician in a cowboy hat. Underneath his red, white, and blue jacket, it said in bold letters, Gandoli for president this November. At least Molly thought there wasn't one advertising Cell for president. The minibus turned onto the highway. Brown, scrubby hills stretched into the distance, and on them stood oil drilling pumps. This is why we're ending soon, because I'm losing the ability to fucking read. Each the size of a small house. They looked like monster birds with metal legs and beak-shaped ends that seesawed, pecking at the ground. As Molly looked at the nodding oil pumps, she couldn't help thinking that Prismocell might already have hitmen pecking around the country, trying to find the 2 children who had made the hypnotic commercial. He probably wanted to do away with them, as he had maybe done away with Davina Natel. The great, heartless iron birds made her courage falter. Soon the small houses began to pop up beside the road, and then larger ones. Then they were driving up a long shopping street, full of second-hand car showrooms and bars, and onto another with clothes boutiques and restaurants. A giant poster had Hercules Stone's smiling face on it. It was advertising the film Blood of a Stranger. Big letters proclaimed, nominated for 3 Academy Awards, Best Film, Best Actress, Leading Role, Best Screenplay. Molly watched a jogger passing a fast food shop called Emergency Donuts. Open 24 hours, don't panic. Petula pricked her ears at a pack of 5 dogs that were being walked by a woman on roller skates. The suburbs are very big here, Molly said to the driver. The suburbs? Said the driver. This ain't the suburbs. This is Los Angeles City itself. This is the city of angels, Angel. But where are the skyscrapers? Asked Molly, sure that he must be wrong. Oh, there are some downtown, but this ain't a skyscraper city, doll. This is a city of gardens, nice and green, and low-rise buildings, which is best, 'cause we get earthquakes here, being on the San Andreas fault line and all that. In fact, we're nearly at your hotel, and your hotel is smack in the middle of Los Angeles. Most places, this is high as the buildings get. But in the center of most cities, Molly said, the buildings are packed closely together. Yeah, that's 'cause most cities are old and ain't got space. This is a young city, and there's always been loads of space. At the end of the wide street was a giant bottle-shaped billboard advertising the drink Cube. Behind the billboard were hills with buildings on them receding steepingly away. Up there, said the driver, are the San Gabriel Mountains, and over there, he pointed behind them, is Death Valley. But you don't want to go there. It's so hot you can fry an egg on the hood of your car. The minibus found a gap on the oncoming traffic and dived up a steep drive on the other side of the road. Molly saw a small sign half hidden by leaves. The Chateau Marmont. Molly looked up at a fairy tale building with turrets and towers. Windows rose for 10 floors, with small balconies in front of them. The entrance was in a cave-like garage under the hotel, where 3 men who looked more like movie stars than porters were waiting to unpack the minibus. Welcome to the Chateau Marmont. Everyone was excited to have arrived, although they were all dazed and dehydrated from the plane, and their eyeballs felt as dry as they'd been rolled around in tissue and then put back in their sockets. Ew. Ascending in the elevator to the hotel's reception area, Molly realized that an odd-looking, scruffy party they made, with boxes of mice and parakeets and Knockman with a 9 o'clock shadow around his chin where he hadn't shaved. The foyer of the hotel was very smart and dark, with tall ceilings and a stone floor. Next to it was a grand sitting room that was packed with people. A few looked up disapprovingly at the gaggle of children. Knockman walked off to find the men's room. Molly went to the front desk to check in. A receptionist with skin like an unpeeled avocado looked worryingly at Roger, who was hugging a small palm tree in a pot. "Is he with you?" he asked. "Yes," said Molly. "He'll come down in a minute. He's just got I've been on a plane too long-itis." The receptionist looked at the 5 children in front of him. "I'm afraid I can't check you in until a responsible adult arrives." "Ugh," growled Molly. "Honestly, we're just as responsible as them." And to avoid wasting any more time, she zapped the avocado man's eyes until he was ready to do exactly as she asked. Then she organized where everyone would sleep. As the receptionist smiled obediently, Miss Trinkleberry arrived. She was late because she'd found herself in the elevator with the famous actor Cosmo Ace. She'd followed him up to the 7th floor and into the fitness room, where she'd watched him pedal an exercise bike. Molly realized that Miss Trinkleberry was going to love the Chateau Marmont. Knockman took the key to his room and disappeared up the stairs with his birds and his luggage. The rest of the party followed a bellboy outside. In the gardens, where it was now dark, steel heaters like a tall, stubby umbrella showered down heat on the guests at tables beneath them. As they weaved along the path between urns of pansies, Molly overheard snippets of conversation. "Steve says he loves your screenplay, but he wants Spelkman directing it." "But Spelkman stinks. His films are slop. He can't get performances out of actors." "Oh no, this is terrible." "It's the only way, Randy." "Now listen, Barbara. I don't want anyone who eats meat doing my hair or my makeup or my nails or anything. Is that clear? I don't want any of that bad energy near me." "Okay, Blake." "So what are you wearing to the Academy Awards, John? Remember, it's watched by people all over the world." "As little as possible." They walked along a jungly path overhung with rustling palm trees and lined with staghorn ferns. Miss Trinkleberry and Roger's bungalow was situated near a sunbathing garden where a waterfall cascaded down from the rocks into a swimming pool. Roger patted the trunk of a broad-leafed ficus tree, and the hotel parrot squawked at him from its cage. The others followed the bellboy again, to the top of a narrow stone-step path, where they came to the best bungalow of all. It was perfect for Petula because it had a fenced lawn in front of it with a little wooden gate. It was a modern rectangular building whose whole front was made of glass. Inside, there was a big sitting room with an L-shaped sofa and a TV, and a small kitchen area to one side. "Someone will come in and clean up whenever you cook," said the bellboy. On top of a counter was a basket full of potato chips and candy. "We'll replenish the snack basket every day." Gemma started to flick through the hotel's leather-bound brochure. Look, there's a hotel film library and it's got hundreds of films to borrow. And music. Gemma spent the next 10 minutes on the phone, calling the others in their rooms. She took room service orders, and 20 minutes later, the food arrived on trays under silver lids. Steaks, french fries, milkshakes, and, since they didn't have orange squash concentrate, Molly ordered some grenadine instead. The room service waiter explained that this was made from pomegranates, and was a fruity syrup that was supposed to be mixed with lemonade, and when it was mixed with ginger ale, Americans called it a Shirley Temple cocktail. Molly sipped the concentrated grenadine from a glass full of ice. She knew that Shirley Temple had been a child star in the 1930s, and this made her think of Davina Natel. She hoped she was safe wherever she was. Molly woke in the middle of the night, her body thinking it was morning. Back in Briarsville, it was already 10 a.m. She found it difficult to go back to sleep because Jerry's mice were on their squeaky exercise wheel. Outside, a tree creaked noisily. She wished that she was in this luxurious hotel to enjoy a vacation, not to embark upon an uncertain mission. Investigating Primo's cell had sounded dangerous back home. Now it felt impossible, too. Molly considered what exactly she and Rocky should do, now they were in cell territory. Definitely, the most important thing was to find out whether Cell was behind Davina Natel's kidnapping, and if he was, to find her. As Molly tried to get to sleep, 2 images from the file of photographs that Lucy had given her kept returning to her mind. One was of Cell in hunting clothes with a half-cocked rifle under his arm and 2 lifeless pheasants over his shoulder. The other was of him on safari with a larger gun and his foot resting on the flank of a large dead antelope. Molly reached down the bed to stroke Petula. Prismo's Cell most certainly liked killing things. Hello, hi. Let me use this as a bookmark. How are you guys doing? Hello on YouTube. Hi. That was wonderful. The snapping or the reading? Salemy's still in his spot. Aw, I'm glad. Did some of you have a good nap while listening? Since I know it's just so easy to listen to my voice and feel all sleepy. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it. I should probably do like, I don't know, vocal warms up. I cannot fucking speak anymore. Vocal warm ups before reading streams, because I can feel a little bit of strain. So for next time. Before stream. But yeah, it's fun. It's definitely interesting rereading rereading a book you only have like vague memory of from childhood. It's like I sort of remember things that happen, but not fully. So it's like I get to discover them all over again with you guys, which is always a pleasure. But yeah, I guess I'll rest my voice now. And hopefully something from EMCSA. I don't know what that is. And seeing how I totally wasn't influenced by them at all. No, absolutely not. Bending people's personalities and, you know, making them obedient to your will and eye fixation, that's so crazy. Why would I have been influenced by that? Hypnotizing a bush or a suitcase. Crazy. Yep, that's it. That's it. No, of course not. Absolutely wild. I've certainly never done any of these things ever. Having a smooth, melodious voice that can hypnotize long distance, watching people get all blank from looking in my eyes. No, it's crazy. Put it into Google. I'll write it down so I don't forget. Eye fixation. I know, it's so crazy, isn't it? Who would have a fascination with eye fixation hypnosis? That's bonkers, right? Who would want to get lost in pretty eyes that just lure you in and that are just so mesmerizing to look at that you can't seem to look away, and that just seem to make you want to obey and lose yourself in them? So crazy. Come on, load faster. Eyeballs are pretty to look at, though. They sure are. Especially when they belong to me, right? But what if? Crazy. Absolutely bonkers. Well, I'm glad that you guys enjoyed again. And again, I'm gonna try to do, you know, like I feel like this amount of time was good so that I don't get too bad like eye strain, and also since I'm reading out loud my vocals. So like, you know, we got a decent amount, maybe like 3 or 4 streams. I don't know. We'll see. You're bonkers, yes. You sure are. Bonkers for getting hypnotized by me. Alright, I'm gonna end TikTok. Bye, TikTok. End it. And then I will see you guys on Tuesday for Super Mario. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Bye, guys. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye. Goodbye, my little pets. I'm sure you will be very, very eager to see my lovely little eyes again as they stare into your soul.